What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. It is our final EWC preview video. We're going to talk about groups B and A in this video. I think group B is pretty chalky. I think we'll get to it, but I think the top two seeds have a real chance to probably just run the table in that group. And then group A, OpTic's group. I think the two other CDL teams, Minnesota ROKKR and Cloud9, it's a pretty open battle to see who will advance in. So let's talk about the matchups, the teams, some picks, because I know you guys are looking to get some picks in for tomorrow. Let's dive in and preview the last two groups. All right, so here you go. We talked about Group D last week, this week, a couple days ago. Group C we talked about in the last video, and now we're doing Group B and Group A. So let's start off with Group B. So I think for this video, we'll actually go the front way around. I know I've been going kind of starting with the challengers team, but I'm going to start with the pro teams in this one. We're going to talk about your champs runners-up, Vancouver Surge. And as you can see for Vancouver, it's been a good season for the boys. I know it didn't really start off great considering, you know, what happened with Charlie, but once they dropped Charlie Hixie and picked up Neptune, they have had 3 second place finishes and that one dead last in Major 4. I'm not really sure what happened there. And I will say, interestingly enough, the first two runners up, you know, in Major 2 and Major 3, they were very competitive in the winners final in both those majors, but then got waxed in the actual finals. And then at champs, I thought in the finals they looked pretty good. I think there's a role where they could have won that finals. They didn't get like swept off the map, but it's just a case for Vancouver of, you know, are they going to be able to make another final? And if they get to a final, can they win it? And I think the other thing with Vancouver is, considering how well almost everybody in this team has played this season, are they going to be able to keep this team together, considering that, you know, a team like FaZe might make a change. A team like Thieves might make a change. You would think OpTic sticks. Toronto might make a change. There are all these other squads who might be starting to recruit some of these guys. I think Vancouver is going to have a little bit of a tricky proposition to keep the squad together. So I think they will get through in this group. I'm not sure if they'll get first seed or second seed, but I think realistically them and Thieves are going to get through here. And that is a good point to talk about LA Thieves playing under the 100 Thieves brand for this event. I think for Thieves, this tournament, they need to make the final. I think if Thieves do not make the final of this event, I think they will 100% drop at least 1 or 2 players off of this team. I'm thinking either Dan Ghosty, who love Dan, but realistically in both Major 3 and Major 4, continue to struggle in grand finals. Even though I think his role on the team as a role player, he executes very well. I just don't know if they lose another final or they don't make it deep in the final, if that's gonna be enough for him to keep his spot. And I think Dylan Envoy is kind of the role-playing sub on this team, and there may be a pack-a-punch opportunity there that they can't really deny. But overall, it hasn't been a terrible season for Thieves. Obviously, they lost in the last round of the grand final in Major 1. They won back-to-back in Major 3 and Major 4, and they just laid a giant egg getting dead last at champs. So I think they're gonna come in with the fire at this event. You know, going into champs, it felt like they really had a control in all 3 game modes, control, hardpoint, S&D. There were really just no weak spots, but the team play and the individual play was awful at champs. And I'm looking for a rebound from all of these players because I don't think anyone played particularly well at the tournament. So I think on paper, they should beat Vancouver when they inevitably head to head each other, right? Thieves are going to play general mates. We'll get to them in a second. Vancouver going to play the triple bends on Team Orchid. I think I'm going to predict Thieves to win that one, but I won't be surprised if Vancouver wins and Thieves get second in the group. If Thieves do get second, we'll probably talk about it throughout the week. It creates a very weird situation where they end up on the same side of the bracket as potentially OpTic and whoever wins from Miami and FaZe. You get like 3 top 5 teams all on one side of the bracket, but I'm excited to watch Vancouver and Thieves realistically play tomorrow and see kind of what version of Thieves we get. Are we going to get the one we saw at champs? And now I'm like, ooh, they might be in the same spot as FaZe, maybe making a roster change, or are they back and a force to absolutely win this event? All right, let's talk a little bit about LAG. I don't need to show their results this season. As you guys have seen, they have been just terrible from the start of the season. Like, they were getting world starred in scrims in November. Like, it has not ended since then. So what they have done going in this event is Fellow has been benched and Diamond Con is coming in. They've also made some front office changes. Mayhem will be coaching for this event. They have brought in a few other folks up from the old LAG situation to replace, you know, D-Real, for example. So I'm curious to see kind of where this goes going forward with their whole team situation, but I just don't know what to expect from an LAG team that I just think is a dead squad, right? You know, Kismet, Lunars, Johnny, Diamond Con. I think they all might end up on different teams next year. And I just don't know if they can get on the same page for this tournament. And I think the problem is that they're going to play Thieves in the first match of this group, and I just don't know. In fact, I'm going to take a step further, and we'll talk about Orchid in a second, but I could also see them losing to Bance and Beans and them. So I don't really think much to say about Gentlemates. We'll have a lot of conversations about them in the offseason. We'll see what kind of moves they make, but it is the dead team walking, and I think they're just kind of they're showing up here so they don't get fined, basically, as a team. So let's talk about Team Orchid. So they have made a change. Ben Beans is coming in for Henry. So you got Ben Bance, Ben Beans, and Ben McKenna, aka Mythics, along with Harry, aka Lucifer, are gonna be their squad. And these guys, you know, I thought Team Notorious, the Afro-led team, would be the EU team that would, you know, make noise at the lands, and probably make it, you know, deep at champs potentially, and make it EWC. But instead, for another year, Ben Bance makes it happen. Second at DreamHack in order to lock in their spot for the Challengers Finals, and they got top 4 at Challengers Finals. That's how they qualified for this tournament. So really respectable run from this EU squad. There is some kind of funny storylines in this one. Abuza with versus Beans and Vance has been some bubbling storylines there for a couple of years now through EU Challengers. But I think Vancouver's just going to be a little bit too buttoned down for them. I think Orchid's best chance to honestly get third in this group. I think on paper, them and LAG is kind of a battle. I just don't know what to expect from Orchid with Ben and like the little practice they had, but I can see Orchid potentially getting third in this group. I just don't see them either beating Vancouver or Thieves. But that would be a nice extra cash in the pocket for those guys. And I think if you're Ben Beans, you need to have a takeover tournament here, get your stock back up at the getting dropped from Toronto Ultra, and try and get in a better situation going into the season starting Roster Mania. All right, so here's what I'm thinking for picks in these first 2 matches in this group. Obviously use code Benji on Prize Picks. Absolutely. I think pick your Orchid player to fade. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go Harry. 49.5 is a little bit tricky. So I would say, as always, if you want to fade a bad team, you pick someone's line in here like a Harry or a Mythics in map 3 and go less on that. On the Vancouver end, I would go with this Nasty Square. He's been really good against this line this season. I'll give you the exact number on the season. He's 23, 25, and 1, but in recent memory, he's above 500 on this. So that's why I think there's a lot of action on the square right now. And I think it's been in some of these promo picks. Yeah, I think Scump's really in on this one, and I think that's why it's a little bit of a bumpski going on there. You could also, if you think it's gonna be a quick series, kind of fade one of these combo plays. Although I would wait to see maps if you're gonna do that. I wouldn't do a combo off the rip here just because don't really know what maps Orchid's gonna play with Beans. And then for the Thieves series versus Gentlemates, I think the KD play here is probably really good. So probably if you want to play maybe a scrap more and expect he's gonna drop like a 1-2 as he usually does against his team, or a Paco in the 1-1-5. I think taking a more there is great, and then fading your favored LAG player, maybe an Ojani at a 0.94, maybe take a little bit of a less on him, because I think they're going to get waxed hard to control, and it's going to really move all these KD lines. You also have this 3 first blood combo with Hydra and Scrap, and before Champs, it was good value. I will say, having moved off of 2.5, I would stay away from it at 3. I think that you'll need 4 to really get a win on that, and I just don't think that's the right kind of square play to do. And then, you know, my thoughts, I think LAG getting slammed to control, so take the lessons here if you really are feeling dicey and spicy and all that jazz. So, all right, that's Group B. Again, Vancouver and Thieves, I didn't go through. I'm going to say Orchid beat Gentlemates, and Gentlemates get last in this group, and let's move on. All right, we got Group A, and obviously we're going to start off with OpTic Gaming, aka OpTic Texas, playing under parent brand, I believe, for this tournament. I mean, there's really not that much to say much about OpTic coming in this one. You know, I think last year, you know, and JP was in my chat about a week ago, and we're kind of yapping about this. I think OpTic last year got unlucky to get 4th. I think if they had been able to, you know, play through a losers bracket, I think there's a chance they could have made the grand final, because the only team they looked close to losing to was FaZe, and FaZe had their number all season last year. So I would have loved to have seen OpTic and Thieves play each other at EWC last year. But weird season for OpTic, super up and down. They pick up Merc. They start to get it going. They have a great champs performance and win the back-to-back ring. Then they come in here and want to go back-to-back to close out the season. And I think this is a really good group for them, because I don't think either of the teams in this group are really that scary. And I kind of expect OpTic to really get an easy one done against Five Fierce team that they have more talent than. And then Minnesota and C9. I think C9 is probably the scarier of the two teams. Just don't know what to expect from Minnesota. We'll get to them in a second. But I think OpTic are going to get through here, and maybe at worst, it's just a dicey second series tomorrow that they just clutched up in game 5 against one of these teams. But I think OpTic's good value there to get through, and I think they're one of the contenders to win this event. Where I think the more interesting conversation is just like trying to figure out between G2 and Cloud9, like which one of these teams is going to get through. Like here were ROKKR's offline results this season, and some with Paul, some with Ken, but they just didn't ever really do enough to take the next step as a team. And every opportunity to clutch or win a big series, these guys were just like unable to do it. And now they're at Last Chance Saloon on that front. And curiously, I'm surprised that there's virtually no changes, really no changes to this team going into this event. I'm not really sure what G2's thinking, because I would have thought they would have tried to shuffle something up going into the post-champs window, but I guess they're going to try and run it back one more time and see if they can make it happen. I think for virtually everybody on this team, they are playing for both a spot next year and also to increase their stock, because I don't think any of them have had some insane season, although I think Geo and Estriel are still, going to be regarded high when it comes to sort of mid-pack team changes next year. I think Ken's going to have to do his politicking thing, and Nero's just kind of low in the pecking order of subs and just going to kind of, it kind of is what it is because of the FaZe and Thieves situations. But yeah, I don't know what to expect from ROKKR in this. Just every series they play is close, and it just comes down to whether they can ice or not. And I just, with them and C9, it's a coin flip. I don't know how to pick. I mean, C9 at least made some changes coming into this. This is their lineup for this event: Sib and Kremp, Sport, and Gwyn. So Gwyn in for Capsidal. And I actually think that this C9 team, to me, has potential, if it clicks, to be like an upset top 4 team at this tournament. I know that's crazy to say. I know some of you are going to flame me in the comments. But on paper, this sub duo in this game could be really good. And I think Sport has been a lot more solid than people may think. The problem is that this team has not been consistent. And while I think that if it clicks from this weekend, they can get top 4, I think they can also very likely not get out of this group. So let's see how this play works for C9, because I think there's a world where if this really clicks, you can build around a Kremp, Gwyn, Dante trio looking for one next year to pack a punch Spart, and they could actually theoretically be a solid team. Or it doesn't work, and I don't really know what C9 do next year, because Dante can go to Falcons, and Kremp and Gwyn, maybe they get poached. Like, I don't know, but the C9 situation is really interesting. And as well for Spart, a big tournament for him will get him a league spot next year if he can figure it out. He's played a serviceable role on this team, but they didn't really do much in Major 4 and didn't qualify for champs. So okay, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to pick Cloud9 over G2 to go with OpTic in this one. I think Cloud9 beat G2, OpTic beat 5 Fears. We'll get the 5 Fears in a second. I think OpTic beat Cloud9. I think G2 will beat 5 Fears, and then Cloud9 will win twice against Minnesota, but that can always get dicey in GSL groups, a double matchup. You just never know. So we'll see what happens. So 5 Fears is in this tournament because Carolina got disqualified. They had Abe on this team when they got top 6 at Challengers Finals. That's how they didn't qualify. But then Abe went to Toronto, and so they replaced him with Capsule after Capsule got dropped from C9. So a bit of an interesting dynamic here that might come into play if Castle's got to play his former team at C9. So you got that going. I think the problem with this team and why I'm not particularly high on them in this group is it's just every person on this team is inconsistent, right? Exceed talks a big game and is like half of that on the map against pro players. So that's kind of a real tragedy there. Fire, we haven't seen a wild shooting against pro players, but has had a great season in Challengers and could actually fry at this tournament. So I'm going to get potentially Fire his flowers here. Pixie, listen, we saw him in the beginning of the year and we've seen him throughout Challengers this season. He's a role player in this team, not a consistent slayer. And Cap is like the biggest feast or famine of all time. So we'll see. This is a weird lineup. It could click and they could grind out. I think they'll just lose at best to game 5 to one of these teams. But I just think there's not enough firepower on this squad, to be honest. So, okay, let's talk picks. I'm going to go with the big one, the G2 C9 match in this group. I think this is a bang out potential first 3 maps. So I really like in this series some of the potential combo opportunities here if you want to go that route. Or you can go with some of the 1-3s here, like Gwyn at 58. He can definitely hit that. Dante at 56. He can definitely hit that. I would say probably Geo over Nero, 57.5. But I think that's a good play. There's a lot of movement on the the KDs in this one. I will say that Sport 1 is just like a very 50-50 line. He can definitely hit it, but I would not play that number. It's really, really, really sharp. I kind of like the Geo 102 more. That could be a really good play. Kremp is sitting at that one. That's pretty sharp. And going at the 105, just don't know how he's going to play on this team, but he did play pretty good at Champ. So whoever thought, the more might be a really good play there. As for kind of the how do you play the OpTic 5 Fear series, which will be one of the first series that gets played tomorrow. I'll be honest, I don't like Morgs in this series because I think 5 Fears could get like mega ran. So I see a lot of action on like Merc. And at one point, like a Merc map 1 was sort of on the most popular list here. I'm just a little bit skeptical about that play. I like going with maybe a First Blood combo with Shotzzy Dashi on like maybe a Hosty situation. 2.5 First Bloods, good value there. Going to map 2 kills and playing on the Brandon 6.5 could be really good. Or taking the map 3 lesses. I think 20 is way too high for Capsule. I think OpTic is just going to run them in control. So I think the map 3 lesses here are the play. But if you've got an angle on a map 2 or map 1, let me know in the comments what you think. But I do not like, you could take a less on the combos. There are none listed for what it's worth for 5 Fears in this series. And the OpTic combos are pretty high. Like 113 with Shotzzy Dashi, Hook Merc assumes like 60. And I just don't see it. I think they're going to kind of run 5 Fears for what it's worth. So maybe taking the lessons on those might be a good play. But just to wrap it up, I think OpTic get 1. And I'm going to say Cloud9 get the 2nd spot in this group, with the ROKKR getting 3rd and 5 Fears getting 4th. I'm not really sure who's going to win this tournament. If I had to make a prediction, I think I have Thieves, and then OpTic and FaZe is sort of the top 3. I'm not really sure between OpTic and FaZe right now who wins. I think based on Champs form, I would say OpTic would get 2nd. But FaZe is like the biggest question mark in this tournament. For me, I just don't know what version of FaZe you're going to get. But I'm going to pick 100 Thieves to go ahead and win this tournament. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. We'll be doing a lot of watch party streams and the flank this week, so make sure you tune in. Then we got roster mania stuff really kicking off next week. So excited for that. As always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.